Hello, my friend. So far, we've been processing data using local memory, but we want to change the local memory into database. So there are some part inside the source code to be modified for CRUD implementation. So first, we actually need to modify all the logic inside the service and controller files. So if you come to our text editor, so we need to come to the controller and the service part. We've been just processing these data things by using this local memory. So, but we are not going to use this one anymore. So we need to just, you can just delete it or you can just comment it. And even for this part, like I'm going to demand or the part here. And for the controller, I'm also gonna just comment the whole parts because we need to change the ordering. Not actually ordering, but the database related parts, we need to change that. So, and then the next thing we need to do is since the data is not stored in memory anymore, the board array, we already deleted inside in here, this part. I just commented it. And then since we use the entity to define the post data, we will delete the board interface in the board model file. So if you come in the model file, board model, so we are not going to use this one anymore to define the board data because we are going to use this board entity to define the board column and the primary key. So we are not going to use this board interface inside this model file, but we still need to use this board status. Also, we are going to just delete this part and then change this file, the board model file, into change this file's name into board status dot enum ts, because this file is for just this board status enum. But when we change this file's name, so when we import that part, like the board status automatically changed into this name, and but we are not going to just export the board from here because we deleted in here. So we need to just delete this part. Not just in here, even inside this controller, we are still import this the board. So, but we are not going to import it anymore. Even for this file's name, it is automatically changed. And then we just did this of number 4. However, since status enum is still needed, the create a file for this part and put it in. So I think it is all for the cleaning up our source code for using the database instead of the local memory. So thank you for watching this video and see you later. Hello my friends, today we are going to get a specific board using ID. So now the data is imported from the database rather than from memory, and the repository pattern is used when using type ORM. So we said about the repository pattern. So when we get a request from the clients, we get the insight from the controller first, and then the controller send that request to the service, but that request needs some database related part, so we also send that to the repository, and then we will deal with the repository thing inside this repository file. So that is the repository pattern. So we want to use the repository pattern. So I will put the board repository in the board service. So to use this repository, we need to inject this repository inside this service. So first we are going to do that. So putting repository in service. So that is repository injection. So when we try to do repository injection, we actually need to do that inside this constructor class. But when we just inject this service into controller, this part like private board repository is the only thing we needed to do. But when we just put this repository inside the service, there is one more line, that is this inject repository decorator. We need to put this line too. So this inject repository is using this decorator, put this in the board repository variable to say that this service used a repository. So it is like declaring we are going to use this board repository inside this board service. So first we are going to our text editor. We come to our service, board service inside the constructor, and then we need the inject repository, and which repository we are going to inject. That is the board repository, and then we are going to use the private and board repository property and board repository, and we need the constructor body. So we did the repository injection right now. So now we need to create get board by ID method in service, because we are trying to get a specific board using ID. But if you come in here, we are using this find one method provided by the type ORM. So by using this find one method, we are putting this ID to get a board with that specific ID. But we are using this board repository, and then we are using this find one method. The reason why we can do like this is, if we come to our repository, we are extending this repository class. We can use the type ORM repository APIs. So that's why we can use it like this or that repository and find one method. So we are going to write this part. So get board by ID. Okay, get board by ID. This this will be really similar to this one. So ID, but ID will be number, because we define that inside the entity. ID will be just a number, and then this will be promise and board and const found await board repository and find one method. We are going to find the board with ID, so that's why we are just putting this ID here. And then if we found that board with that ID, we put that board specific board's data inside this found. And then if we couldn't find that board with that ID, we need to throw new not found exception and can find board with ID and ID. And if we've found that board with that ID, we are going to return that found. And to use this await, we also need to write the async in here. You know this async await. So this database process is asynchronous. So after finishing this process, we want to get that result from this database work. So that's why we need to put the async await. So we can get, if without this async await, we will just get the this found will be like processing like this. But if we want to first finish this process and then get that result, so we need to put this async away. That's why we also need to put this promise in here to represent the completion of an asynchronous operation. So yeah, we also need to modify the controller parts as well. It won't be much different from this one. You can just copy and paste it like this if you want to, and then just comment it out. And we are still need the ID from the param, and then but the ID will be the number type, not string anymore. And then this one return the promise, and type will be the board. Yeah, it's the same. So we finish making this feature to get a specific board using ID. So thank you for watching this video, and see you later. Hello my friend. This time we will handle the part of creating a board. So first, if you see the service part, first we need to make the method or name the create board inside this service. So by using this method, we are going to save the board inside the database we want to make. First, we get the title and description that comes from the client, and that is also in this create board DTO. And we first need to make the board instance. So by using this instance, we will just put this one inside the save method. First make the instance, and then we will save the board inside the database. So first we come to our text editor. Here inside this board service, make the method named create board, create board DTO, and then create board DTO, promise and board and const title and description, and create board DTO. And first we need to make the board instance to save that inside the database. To make the board instance, we will use the create the method. Inside this method, we will put the title and then description and the status. And for the status, we always use this default value public. Yeah, and we don't need to give ID anymore because this one is automatically created. So and then await this board repository and save, and we put this instance and then return board we are going to create. So we also need to write something inside the controller, and we come to the controller here, board controller. Above this create board, you can also copy and paste it in here and then comment it out. The part we need to change is this one. This will be promise and type board. This is where we need to change. So now I actually want to create the board by using the Postman. Here we come inside this Postman. First we need to turn on our application, npm run start dev, and then we come to our Postman again, and this will be the post request, and then it will be localhost 3000 and boards. We need to put the title and description here, title and title 1, and description will be description 1. So now I'm going to click this send button to make the board. So this you can see here, so our board is created with the title 1 and description 1. So now we are going to look at our database whether this board is really created or not. So come to our pg admin, and then inside the board project, and we come to schemas and table, and after clicking this board, we click this button. So if we come in here, so you can see this board named the title 1 and description 1 is created. So we are good for this creating a board. Thank you for watching this video, and see you later. Hello my friend. This time we will deal with the part that deletes the board. So when deleting the board or any item inside the database, so we can use two methods, that is the remove or the delete. So if we see the difference between them, so if we use the remove method, so the unconditionally existing item must be deleted using the remove method, otherwise an error will occur. So if we use this remove method, when we actually don't have that item we want to delete inside the database, we can fix that error. But if we use the delete method, or if the item exists inside the database, it is deleted. And if it does not exist, it has no effect. So we are not going to get any error, or even though that item we want to delete doesn't exist inside this database. So because of this difference, if you use remove, you have to use the database twice to delete one item because we don't want to get any error from that. So if we use the remove method, we need to use the database twice. That is not actually good for the performance. So that's why we are going to use this delete method. So first, if we come to our service, board service, by using delete method, inside this delete method, we put that ID here because we are going to delete the board with the specific ID. So first we come to the text editor here, and then inside the service here, uh, above this delete board, async delete board ID will be the number and promise, and we are not going to return anything, so we put the void as a type and const a result and await this board repository and delete ID, and we are going to print this result by using console log. So, and then we also need to write something inside the controller, and we go to our controller, board controller here, by copy this part and then paste it and then comment that out. The difference we need to make here is a promise board, right? This, and we also need to change this one a number. Actually, we already have an item inside our database. If you see this PG admin here, I actually want to delete this item. So come to our postman, and then by using this delete method and then local host 3000 and board, and we need to give the ID as a param, so we put the ID 1 because this item we have inside the database ID is the 1, so that's why we need to put the ID 1 here, and then just we try to delete it by clicking this send. Now if you come to the database and then refresh it, that was removed. Well, and then if we come to our if we see our log, we print it by using this one inside this service or the service. We try to print it, so that's result is a delete result and affected one. So we actually deleted only one item, so that's why this affected is 1. So, but if we don't delete anything, so right now we try to delete this item again, so try to delete it again, so I click this one again, so we didn't get any response here. So but if we see this console log, so affected 0. So if we didn't delete anything by calling this method, so we actually need to do something. So to do that, so when we didn't delete anything, so if result and affected is 0, that means we didn't delete anything. New not found exception or can find word with ID. This is we actually need to do. So if we try to delete it again, so we don't have this item inside the database anymore, so we cannot delete it. So if we click this send, so we need to get this message, can't find board with ID 1. So that's what we actually wanted. So thank you for watching this video and see you later. Hello my friend. This time we will deal with updating the status of the board. So for the board service, we need to make the update board status method. So first we need to get the specific board we want to update by using this get board by ID. So by using this method, we can get this board object. Inside this board object, we can get the board's ID and board's title and description and status. But among them, we want to change the status. And then we are going to save the board that has changed. So come to our text editor. Now inside this board service, we are going to type the async update board status ID string, ID number, and the status will be board status. This will be from board entity and const board. This board get board by ID. We put the ID to get the board's data inside the database, and then we need to just change. We need to change status by using status. And we forgot to write the await here, and we need to save the board that has changed. Await, and this board repository save and board, and we need to return the board that is updated. And we also need to change something inside the board controller and come to our board controller here. We are going to copy and paste here, and the pass will be same, and the param and the body will be same, and the ID will be the number, and the returns type is promise and board. Okay, so we are trying to update the status. First we need to create the post. To create it, we are going to use this title and description again. So by clicking this send button, we come to the PG admin, and we have this ID2 and title 1, description 1, and the status is public right now, but I'm going to change this public into private. We are going to use the patch request and then localhost 3000 and boards, and we need to give the ID 2 and status, because the passes we specify in here ID and then ID param and status. So we need to give the status key and then private for the status value we want to change into. So if we click this send button, so we have the space in here. So I need to delete the space, so I'm going to click this send again. So if we go to our PG admin here, you can see this part, the status part. I'm going to refresh it. I just paused the video and check why this wasn't changed. Actually, this value needs to be changed into the private. So I tried to find it, why it hasn't changed. So the part I made a mistake was inside this status validation part. Like the transform, we actually need to return the value in here, but we didn't return any value in here after transforming. So what this is, like if we come inside this controller, so you can see this validation pipe in here. So even though we try to provide this status value as a private, but without that, the validation is returned inside this controller. If I try to the print this status value, I try to get the status, but if I send this request, and then if I see the log in here, the status is undefined. But after I put the return value in here, like this, if I click the send it again and come to our text editor, and we can see this private appear in here right now. So that was the problem. So board status validate pipe. And then if we come to our database and I try to refresh it, and now it has changed it into private for the status. So thank you for watching this video and see you later. Hello my friend, this is the last part for the CRUD, fetching all the boards from the database. So it is quite easy compared to the CRUD part. So just by using this find method, so we are going to get all the boards we have inside the database, and then we also write something inside this controller too. So come to our text editor, and inside this board service, we come in here, write the async and get or boards and promise board, and this will be array, and return this board repository find. So by using this method, we are going to get all the boards from the database, and then we need to go to the controller, and this part we are going to copy and paste, and this will be the promise. So this is OR. So we are trying to get all the boards by using the postman. Get local 3000 boards, and then click the send button. So we have only one item inside a database. So one item. So if we are trying to a board, so here, and we are trying to get all boards again, so we can see two boards, title 1, like here, title 1 and title 2. So thank you for watching this video, and see you later.